Welcome back onto theCUBE's live stream here on the floor at FinOps X in San Diego 2026. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE with my co-host Paul Nashawaty with theCUBE Research. We're unpacking all the data here, we're getting all the trends. The Tokenmaxxing era is over, now you're starting to see cost reining in the ROI, looking at the value proposition. Generative AI is generating a lot of value, and here to talk about it, it seems like the same movie we've seen in cloud, but it's happening much faster in AI. Jay Litkey is the Senior Vice President of Cloud and FinOps with Flexera, and Erik Carlin's back, CUBE alumni from 2023, featured on theCUBE, co-founder and Chief Product Officer of ProsperOps, a Flexera company. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on theCUBE, good to see you again.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Back here. FinOps, it's a show that, it's, and I won't say niche, but it's becoming the most important conversation. Tokens on the front page of every story, you start to see the headlines, whoa, this AI is great, people are using it, creating value, or creating value in the process, and then boom, the bills come.
Yep.
Everyone's saying upgrade, get stuck in Claude, I'm almost done, just okay more, like on the treadmill. And then OpenAI, all good, but the chaos has got to be reined in. AI is hot, but now this is what this is talking about, but it's not just tokens, it's the entire system.
Right.
What's your reaction to that?
I'm a little disappointed Tokenmaxxing ended so fast. I'm in the video game generation, and I wanted to get on the leaderboard, I never got a chance, and now the high scores are gone. So it's, it was a good idea maybe for a brief, got people using it, but yeah, I think the reality has settled in now that this stuff ain't cheap.
Yeah, and there's clear lines of sight, and we see with early stages of agentic, if you get it right, the dividends are there, just like cloud. So you're seeing the same movie. So what's changed since cloud? Because similar vibe, different economics, because there's now revenue involved.
Yeah.
Faster, cost takeout for sure, but now the costs are going up over here. What's your take on
I think a few things is if you look at just cloud, we got conditioned to pay for what we provision and what we use. And it wasn't easy, that's why FinOps came along, but relatively we came to get a handle on it. But with AI now, you're paying for the behavior of an application. Yeah. You're paying for how good or sizable is the prompt, the retries, the customer questions. And when you look at agents now, you're paying for their behaviors. They can do a lot of things, and they can do a lot of things fast. Yeah. So it's a difference, it's similar but different.
Jay, you're spot on. I think similar but different sums it up nicely, because when you look at cloud, it was pretty much managed by the IT groups, right? But like now with AI, everyone's touching it.
That's right.
Everyone's doing something with it. It's going into every aspect of the environment. So understanding the cost, the spend, understanding what's happening is incredibly important. Erik, what are your thoughts on this as well? Because I mean, there's a lot happening here.
Yeah, I always say AI is the new cloud. So, as we said, cloud in the early days, and I've been part of cloud since the very early days. It was really about rampant spend in the early days. Developers were putting down credit cards and just, where is all this money? What are we sending all this money to AWS for? Like, what's actually happening? And so you see that same thing happen again, only massively accelerated because, again, you're putting in a prompt to a system, you've got agentic workflows that are just, consuming tokens in a way that's just invisible, basically today. And so it's the same story, but at an accelerated scale and pace, and in the same way that FinOps emerged to sort of get a handle around cloud costs in the early days, then it led to recommendations for how to control that and governance, and ultimately it led to automation to kind of control and optimize those costs. I believe the same thing is going to happen in the world of AI as well, but we're just super early days right now.
But to break it down to for the audience, right, for a simplistic kind of approach, there's a difference between a traditional way of doing cloud cost optimization and AI, right? Because there's a very big difference in how you manage tokens, how you manage a spend, how you manage governance, compliance, regulations, and controls. There's a whole slew of different things that are happening. So, if we simplify that, what does that mean from if you're traditionally, used to a traditional approach, cloud costs, this is what I understand it to be, now I have this AI thing, I don't know how to get my hand around it. What would you advise people to do?
The first step is really around visibility.
Yeah.
So how do you have full visibility into your AI spend? What are all the tools that you're using? How do you get a handle around what's deployed in your environment, how those tokens are being consumed, and which groups are using them, et cetera, et cetera. it gets hard again because you've got so much inside that AI black box that you don't yet have visibility into.
Right.
And so we can only partially answer that question today, but as things mature, as happened with cloud, I mean in the early days of cloud we didn't have things like a cur file in AWS, which is basically understanding on a resource basis what you're being charged for.
Yeah.
That eventually emerged, it gave us more visibility, and so that same trend is going to happen in AI. We're just in the early days right now.
What have you guys learned from the cloud era to this now AI era, and how are you taking that forward with customers?
Well again, one is this phase transition from visibility to recommendations to automation, and so the first thing we're doing right now is we're really trying to get a handle around visibility. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. And we're starting to think about, because what we do at ProsperOps is really around automated optimization outcomes. And so, we're sort of starting to think about, we know where this movie is going to go. We've seen it before.
Right.
So we're starting to get ahead of it and just think about how do we begin to deliver automated optimization outcomes for AI so that these costs don't require such active management by humans.
So let's talk about that though, the relationship between Flexera and ProsperOps. How did that all kind of come together?
I think we recognized that between us, when Erik talked about the spectrum of value from visibility, right, to rate optimization, workload optimization, between us we cover that whole waterfront. Right? So it's our unique opportunity to say, hey, as customers grow through the maturity curve for FinOps, we together have a capability set that can take a customer from basic maturity, what do I have, to how do I optimize it and use the right amount. So it was a unique opportunity to bring them together.
Yeah.
Now with AI showing up, rinse, repeat, to a degree. And as Erik said, it all starts with visibility. And if I talk about sort of Flexera and our view of AI, what's interesting is because we have a span today across a lot of silos in the enterprise, we have ITAM people and SaaS management people, we have FinOps people, we have all these different kind of silos. AI is coming like a freight train into all of those silos.
Yeah.
So when I think about basic visibility, I'll give you an example question I like to ask when I'm in front of these different people is, who owns Anthropic management in your enterprise? And what's interesting is, FinOps people put their hand up. Actually, everybody puts their hand up because they're all impacted in some way because Anthropic is creeping into everything.
Yeah.
So it's a unifying use case that I think is going to pull the gravity now
It's an opportunity to break down the silos too, because the spend in one area might be over budget, but it would save millions over here potentially. So you have this kind of like, I won't say cross-subsidization, but cross-impact.
Yes.
That's was never really impacted before.
That's right.
How is that playing out? Are you seeing that?
We've talked a lot. I had lunch with Stephen White from Gartner here. He's talked for years around ITAM and FinOps working together, merging, converging, all of the above. And I think AI is the use case now that's going to knock those silos down, and we're seeing that in real time here. We need the data and we need the expertise from each of these areas to come together to solve even just AI visibility.
Yeah, I love this topic, and I think this, again, I love this when you get these events and you see the future and this is going to be a massive community because the impact is money, right? And that's going to get everyone's attention. It's real time, so you're starting to see a lot of that.
Yeah.
How has that changed the organization? First of all, there's a lot of deep tech, so love the deep tech angle with cloud and AI, but the executive and organizational change. CFOs that are doing well are more operational. You got HR involved, certainly the CIO and CISO are involved with security and IT. What's the change in the organization? Because now you have these different groups. Is it a reorg? Who owns what? This becomes not a change management, but really more of a change organization structure. Have you seen?
I was going to hit actually organization, one thing how this is different, because you asked about cloud versus AI. It took a while for cloud to be a board level conversation.
That's true.
Right, yeah, so cloud came in and Erik talked about the whole company wasn't going to Amazon EC2 and pulling out credit cards and running the cloud.
They were saying, no, don't go.
Right, and it was a subset of people, and it wasn't until enough spend that CFOs were aware, and it wasn't until it hit the P&L enough that the board was aware.
They snuck it in.
AI overnight has been top down.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's a board level conversation almost immediately. We haven't seen that too much in technology adoption.
On those areas that you talked about though, ITAM and then software asset management too, and AI, those are different groups. They're different personas.
Different groups, but here's the common freight train I said that's AI. The SaaS management people are seeing AI come overnight in the features and the products they use. You're seeing those providers move from traditional seat-based licenses to consumption. So they're being thrown into the world of AI consumption management. FinOps understands consumption management. AI is the new cloud. So all of a sudden now the whole organization, all of these silos have to deal with managing consumption-based technology overnight.
Yeah, and the speed of app development that Paul covers, you're seeing innovation where they're driving revenue. Do more of that, things they couldn't do before. So now you have that pressure point coming in.
This is the great tension, the AI is on page one of every CEO's agenda in every company, and so innovation, AI, how do we use this to evolve? And then you've got the flip side of the coin, which is the CFO, who has to manage these uncontrolled costs. And so this collision is basically happening in every company right now.
How do people optimize for value? It's a big discussion. It's very clear that it's working because people are using it. Once you use AI in your job, whether you're using it for augmentation or coding, you're seeing real benefits. People can feel it, it's an experience. They're driving data, sometimes on-prem. Again, we're back to the data center, not just cloud.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see now new things unlock.
Yeah.
On-premises activity is super high.
Yeah.
The data's there, they're going to move it to the cloud and have some distributed computing in a hybrid model.
And here's one challenge. Everybody's looking for the value component, right? How do we justify this massive spend, right? The hockey stick, I'm a Canadian. The hockey stick curve of AI spending. How do we justify that value? And even heard J.R. Storman say in his keynote this morning, here's a bunch of metrics we think we might be able to measure. Are they the right ones? We haven't all aligned yet around what do we measure value on.
But it's also, and I've been saying this kind of all day, the dollar doesn't equal the dollar doesn't equal the dollar.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, you have to innovate, you have to experiment, but that cost is very different than production workloads and direct tie to revenue. So if you're investing and innovating to what you need to get to, that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. Is that something you're thinking of?
And here's the dynamic we see. People want to keep doing FinOps, get cloud savings to fund AI innovation.
Right.
Yeah. The open question is, how long can that go on for? Yeah. Because when you plot these on the same curve, the amount of cloud savings I can realize is a downward trending line over time, right? Yeah. AI, we saw this morning, the hockey stick, these are at odds with each other.
Yes.
So initially, it's a great idea to fund using the savings innovation, but at the end of the day, AI is going to have to stand on its own two legs and justify the value itself.
All right, to pick up on the hockey analogy, because I love ice hockey, I played it all my life. The collaboration between these groups is super high. It's a lot of teamwork involved, pass, shoot, score. If they work together and unify the data silos that are going to be broken down, it is a team sport.
Yep.
Take us through how you see that playing out. Any use cases, any templates?
Do you want to go first, or?
Is there any offensive strategies?
Well, I think in general, FinOps was born out of this problem. And again, it was born in the cloud era, but disparate teams not talking. And so in the same, the theme of like, we've seen this movie before, it's just playing out in a different way. You want to apply the same FinOps principles to this new world of AI to get teams collaborating in order to effectively optimize and reduce those costs. So I think it's the same, and that's why, I mean, in JR's keynote, he announced the Tokenomics Foundation and how it's basically a parallel sister foundation, but working together with FinOps, right? And you have things like Focus, which are going to span both foundations. Sure. So the idea is to take everything we've learned from the cloud era and basically apply it to this new world of AI. It's different, we don't have all the answers.
I think it's a good call to do the separate foundation.
Yeah.
Because it's a different domain, they have different working groups.
I was going to add one thing on that too. I think at three legs of the stool is we got FinOps and we got Tokenomics AI as part of Linux Foundation now, the ITAM forum, and the partnership with the foundation and the ties of Linux. We have three legs of the stool now to adopt the collaboration principles that FinOps has established. Yeah. So the idea we've talked around ITAM and FinOps and AI, and everybody needs to come together to solve this tsunami of AI. I think the FinOps practice, the approaches, all of that, can now be applied, and having them all commingling is going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah. I agree on the separate foundation, by the way. My first reaction when I heard it is, maybe this is an over-rotation, like is this actually necessary? But if you think about what the FinOps Foundation has been able to do by getting together, I mean, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft on stage together, presenting, talking. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment to get those competitors together for the sake of customers. And I think the same exact thing needs to happen in the AI domain. So we need to get OpenAI and Anthropic and all of the, and Google, Gemini, all these together
It's
to
going
really
to
solve
dominate
this
the
problem.
headlines too, and I think that's why we heard on theCUBE earlier today, one of our guests said, it's kind of like a car and gasoline.
Yep.
You got to have the gas to run in the car, and there's a whole industry around gasoline, so I think the tokens will be that gasoline, the gas in the car. In fact, we were on Twitter, I was chatting with someone in a little Twitter thread around premium tokens. Now there's discussion.
Right.
So you're starting to see the levels of a portfolio of capabilities that again falls right into the wheelhouse of the car side, the FinOps side, and ITAM side, which is, okay, what's the structural element, the car, it's the business. So whatever gas you put in,
Yeah.
regular unleaded, it's premium. So I think we're starting to see this portfolio approach, entry level, mid-range, high end.
We are, I agree with this, John, but I also think, Eric, you're on point. The two organizations that are kind of branching off, the thing that immediately came to my attention or my understanding is, I've been following open source for quite some time, and this year alone, the big trend that has been coming up is the lack of giving back to open source. And when I heard of another foundation kind of forking off, I'm thinking, do they have the resources to support these initiatives? Even though they're a sister organization, sister group, it has a different vision, different mission, but at the end of the day, do they have somebody that's going to drive it? And that is really, comes down to, well, the vendor community, it comes down to the people, the community itself that's supporting it, and everybody giving back to the
So here's a
open
ringing
source.
endorsement, I think, what Eric said around the two foundations, because lots of people have their reaction, do we need another one? And the second thing is, are we over-rotating to the word tokens? And we've talked about that, It's not just tokens, but it's a good atomic element. When the FinOps Foundation started, it took a while to get a lot of heavyweight names throwing weight behind it and endorsing it.
Yeah.
You heard JR say on stage, 5 days notice for Tokenomics Foundation, and he put the logos up of the initial supporters. You don't see many things start like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think
That's right.
there's a lot of people that looked at it, asked the same questions as Eric, and then quickly got it, Flexera included.
And Linux Foundation's got a good playbook here because the way they run their projects are pretty strong.
Yeah.
CNCF has been very successful with KubeCon. And now they got the Agentic AI Foundation, separate charter. Again, you decouple in highly cohesive elements, but they're connected because one's doing, there's overlap for sure. There's kind of certainly a lot of overlap between CNCF and that, but same here. And I think that's good. I personally think it's good because everyone's they're not going to stop talking about the cost of tokens.
That's right.
Especially with everyone token-maxing or trying to get on the leaderboard. So to me, the question is, what comes out of this community that's going to bubble up to the CFO? I'm not saying the CFO should be here, because it's a tech conference, but the result of this community will be a utility for the real-time CFO and the CEO. They're not going to be 2 quarters in, wondering what happened. Like cloud, we've got a little bit, they didn't really pay attention, in my opinion. You probably have better data on that, but what's your take on that? Because I think the CFOs will eat this up. Because once the solutions come up with the common language, the levels of granularity, what's your guys' thoughts on this? Because I know JR doesn't want CFOs here, per se, because it's not a CFO show, but it is a CFO application at the end of the day.
Well, I think like FinOps was about, they rose up from being cloud cost management or even cloud cost reduction to managing technology value. They learned how to start translating technology into the value speak that CFOs want to hear. Rinse, repeat now for tokenomics. We know the keys to the CFO's heart is to translate all this technical stuff
into revenue,
into revenue, into EBITDA, into
Well, it's not an
economics.
IT. This is the thing. IT projects were about IT transformation.
Right.
The #1 conversation we're having on theCUBE in New York, at NYC, and Palo Alto, and the events is business model transformation, because like cloud changed some of the economics and how the business operated from a development standpoint, AI is going to change the business models. And so we're even seeing pilots run differently. For instance, a lot of common threads are that the agent pilots, they're targeting the hardest problems first. IT would have gone the other way. Oh no, we're going to go out over here, do a sandbox. They're saying, no, we know this is a hard get, and if we get it, revenue pops out. Because their domain is revenue, not so much tech. So they got this balance of deep tech and CFO, and then did we make the ROI, or should we put more agents versus people? So when it comes to cost per ownership, TCOs are huge, payback, that's different. I've never seen that before. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, AI is so transformative, and the generative nature, basically, if you think about historically, a lot of maybe classical AI, could do some very advanced things, but it was deterministic in nature, meaning at some point you exhaust kind of the if then else structure. The generative nature AI allows you to basically address extremely hard problems that you couldn't do before, and maybe there's hallucination that happens because at the end of the day, it's a probabilistic solution, it's going to give you an answer, but it just unlocks the ability to tackle problems that you couldn't tackle before. And so the idea that you can go after those things and just transform your business in ways that weren't possible before is
All right, guys,
huge.
really appreciate you coming on theCUBE. Final question, what's the momentum going forward for you guys? Sarah, what's the focus? What are you optimizing for as you come out of the show? The second half looks pretty busy, and if it's the same as the first half, it's going to be like a 2 years worth of action. What's the
We're
focus?
focused very heavily on the combination. What's the 1 + 1 = 3? To drive higher savings and better outcomes for customers.
Yeah, I would say tactically, right, ProsperOps' mission is to help customers prosper. We want to go help them save money in cloud so they can optimize to innovate. How do we take that money and put it towards their AI spend? Over time, we want to go and actually figure out how to do for AI what we've done for cloud.
DevSec FinOps happening. Guys, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
I'm John Furrier with Paul Nashawaty. Getting towards the end of day one. Of course, we had a day 0 event kicking off the pregame, the keynote yesterday. More coming after this short break.